Hello, Minnesota. It's another beautiful Saturday, and you know what that means. You're here, right now. The Tony Hernandez Show. We broadcast live every Saturday from 4 o'clock until 5 o'clock. And as you can see, I have my beautiful wife, Leona. She is making her first appearance on the Tony Hernandez Show. And it's a tribute because this show is going to be about babies. You know, Joe Mauer and his wife just had twins. The royalty in Great Britain, they just had their baby, and I just thought it would be a good time to have my beautiful wife on. So Leona,
Thanks,
thank you
Tone.
for coming on. I don't usually kiss the hand of the guests here, but so
It's good to hear.
What do you think? How do you like being here on set for the first time? Because you're one of our biggest fans, watching it on YouTube and other means, and you're finally here right now. What do you have to say about that?
It's fun to see. It's interesting to see all the work that goes on just to put on an hour show. I have been here before, but on the other side, just watching you.
That's right.
So
well, you
it's
did
fun
come
to see
on.
this perspective.
You did come on for
about 30 seconds
Yeah, it was
once.
30 seconds
Yep.
at the end of one show when we were over in the other studio,
Yes.
the Nano studio here at SCC Television. So we're going to start the show off on a light-hearted note. I came across this video that went viral. It's of a little baby, and since the theme of this show is babies, I thought it would be a good way to start the show. And we're just going to put it on play now.
She just loves it.
So yeah, that's something that I saw. I can't remember what station I originally saw it for, but it just kind of warmed my heart a little bit. And I've actually never seen a baby laugh that hard before. Have you?
That's an impressive belly laugh for a little baby.
Yeah, it is. And I guess the baby thought it was so funny when the dad goes and feeds the dog popcorn. For some reason or another, for this baby to see the dog eating popcorn is enough to make her just start cracking up. But
Maybe we should get a dog, huh?
I don't
Have a
think,
happier baby.
I don't think that's a good idea, at least at this point. But yeah, so we just got done watching our cousins too for the last 4 days. We were watching our cousins ages 1, 3, and 5. So that was a pretty good warm-up period and intro to what being a parent is all about. So if you're a parent out there, I have so much respect for you. I always have. But after nearly a week of watching my cousins, you just realize how challenging and how much work it is to raise kids. I remember that Sunday that we took them kind of all over the metro to some parties. We went to the Mass and we went to the park and we chased them around. We fed the kids. We did pretty much just a normal Sunday, I think, for a lot of parents. And once it hit 10:30 p.m., I hit the bed and I conked out. I was
It's an
exhausted.
exhausting day. And they're great kids, but it was still exhausting.
Yeah. So if you're a parent out there and you're taking care of your kids the right way, we salute you. And yeah, but I'm pretty excited for our baby. Our due date is September 1st, which is right around the corner. We're just over a month away. 35 weeks is today, and
7 weeks at the most left.
And really, the baby could come. It could come
Anytime and be pretty healthy.
So if it comes at 35 weeks, will there be any? I mean, you're a nurse, a pediatric ICU nurse. Would there be any extra care that's involved with that?
They'd probably have a little trouble eating, so it might be a little more time in the hospital or just a little bit more of a struggle to get them to eat. But usually, 37 weeks is term, and 36 weeks usually they can go home right away. So
So
we'll wait at least 1 week.
Yeah,
That'd be good.
And from the sonogram that we've had, and these things aren't always accurate. And I think one of the nurses or the doctors were like, they shouldn't be telling you this information, but you can see when they measure like the cranium, they put a circle here, and then they put the line across, and so we could see the measurements of the baby's head, and you could see also the percentile, and I think it was 95th percentile.
Thanks to Dad.
Yeah, my head is, they say the bigger the head, the bigger the brain. But so that was shocking though to see that, and they said it's a week ahead in terms of the growth.
Size.
And then they estimated the weight, but that's where I think the doctor, the nurse practitioner,
It can
was a
be
little
pretty
perturbed.
inaccurate.
Yeah, because they're going off of imaging and estimates, but according to them, it's a big baby. So in a way, I kind of hope that it comes a little earlier.
A little early.
I don't know. Do you share that with me as well?
For my
or-
sake, selfishly, yeah. That'd be great.
So we're going to bring in Sam Wayne Pierce here. He's He joins with us live pretty much every Saturday from Syracuse, New York. Sam Pierce, how are you?
Hi, Tony. I'm great. And hi, Leona.
Hey, Sam, good to see you.
So
Good to see you.
yeah, Sam, it's good to see you. We've been having some pretty cool weather here in Minnesota over the last couple days, and I like the hot weather. I like the humidity. I like the sweat. I like when it's really hot, like 90, 100 degrees. And all of a sudden, the last few days here in Minnesota, it's been, I think today it's like around 60 degrees.
Feels
raining.
like fall.
It feels like fall, and for me, it kind of brings up the future, gives me a glance of that winter is just around the corner. But how has the weather been in New York, Sam?
Similar, Tony. We had a stretch of real high humidity, high temperatures, 90s a couple weeks ago, but it's gotten a lot better. Now, I don't share your good feelings for the warm weather. I like a summer day that hits about a high of 70, so that's what we've had here for about a week. Well, actually, 70s, maybe low 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty nice summer weather. I can't complain too much.
Yeah, and I tweeted out the other day, I think it was a couple weeks ago, about it was a hot day and how I went out running. And you said, "Oh, running in the hot weather, it's not." But for me, I love running in the hot weather. And when it's cooler, I don't do as well running in the cooler temperatures. Is that just me, or am I alone in that?
Everybody's different. The good part about the really hot weather, if you like it and you can stand running in it, is then you do get a really good sweat and you get lots of toxins out of your body. So that's always a good thing. Most people find that the sun and the heat is draining, though. You'll feel really good. You'll feel tired. You'll feel beat, like you worked out really hard. But you might not be able to go as long because the heat does. It's proven to drain some of your energy. So I think I tweeted you back. I said, well, whatever you like, but I want you to have temperatures cool enough that you can run long distances because you've got to beat Jake in that show in the weight loss contest with the show. So you need to run a lot of miles, Tony.
Yeah, I know, and I got a lot more miles to go, which, I want to make excuse number 159 about the Twin Cities Marathon last year when I ran and why I didn't do quite as good as I wanted to, although I finished. So if you remember last summer, at least in Minnesota, I believe, and I think you told me this, Leona, that last summer was one of the hottest, if not the hottest, summers in history.
July was record.
Or July, yeah. And so I remember training in July, and it was so hot. And, again, I kind of liked it. And then when I ran the Twin Cities Marathon, it was probably the coldest day in the whole time period. That morning was probably close to freezing, maybe just north of 32 degrees. And I don't know. Would that have affected my time at all, Sam?
Absolutely. Either way, if your body's used to real warm weather and then all of a sudden you get a cold day, that's difficult, and vice versa. If you're training in the cold and then you get a freak hot day, either way will have an impact because your body gets used to training in a certain type of weather. The difficulty with the cold, Tony, is then if you're used to training in warm weather all through the summer into the fall, and then you get a forecast for a really cold day all of a sudden, what kind of gear do you wear? Because you don't know. You're used to going out in not a whole lot of clothing, really, because you get hot right away. And then all of a sudden, if it's going to be 32 degrees, how many layers do you wear? How hot are you going to get over 26 miles? So weather is always a runner's challenge. But before we, while we're on the topic of the Minneapolis or Minnesota summer weather, I wanted to draw some attention to something for your viewers that I found really interesting this week.
Okay.
And that is, if you pick up the Wall Street Journal weekend edition today, they have a special section called Off Duty, and it's different than their usual political or money and market analysis commentary. It's just for fun, and I don't know if I'll be able to show this as a visual aid over the monitor very well. But this special section of the Journal named Minneapolis, Minnesota, the nicest city in America.
Oh.
Wow.
So I just wanted to bring that to the viewers' attention and say, if you get a chance to check that out, it was nice to read. I don't know a whole lot about Lake Harriet or the Mill City Farmers Market or the Walker Art Center, but I enjoyed reading about it and hopefully want to see those places when I'm out in Minneapolis next month to do the show live from the studio.
Yeah,
Oh, we'll take you.
yeah, definitely. Well, those of us who live on the St. Paul side, though, may beg to differ. We actually may think that St. Paul is a little better than the Minneapolis side, but we did have the Minneapolis mayoral candidate, Cam Winton, here about a month and a half ago, and of course, he's running for to be the next mayor of Minneapolis. He had tons of great things about him and his family living in Minneapolis. He talked about the restaurants. He talked about the lakes. There's Lake Harriet, there's Calhoun, there's Lake of the Isles that are all around this chain. And actually, Sam, if you're up for a run, that's actually a great run. Is to run around all three of those lakes. I think it's around 10 to 12 miles. So if you're up to it, if we didn't have too many soda pops, adult soda pops the night before, maybe we should try to tackle that.
And the farmers market
Or
in
maybe do it-
Minneapolis?
What's that, Leona?
Oh, the farmers market in Minneapolis is the best.
Which one?
As much as I love St. Paul, the one that he's talking about.
Where is
we
it,
should
though?
go there. I don't know directions.
That's right. I forgot about that. So, Sam, we're going to the theme of this show being babies, and we're going to talk about some other things beyond just babies here. But in Minnesota, I don't know if that made news out in New York, but Joe Mauer, he just recently had twins, and I think it was it the day after, the day before the royal family had their baby, Kate Middleton, and I always get the princes wrong. You corrected me. It's not Prince Harry, but it's Prince William.
Prince
Is that right?
Prince William, and William is Harry's older brother.
Mm-hmm. And there were some articles in the Pioneer Press and the Tribune, but I read a couple comments that like the Mauer family is equivalent to our Prince William and Kate Middleton. But it's pretty cool though that Joe Mauer had his first twins being born, and so we congratulate their family on that and wish them the best, and they're healthy and happy and everything. So that's good. But we're gonna play a clip here, Sam. So I'm gonna take you off the screen here, and but we can still hear you, and we're just gonna watch. This is Prince William and Duchess Kate, and they're appearing for the very first time ever in the public with their newborn. And so we're going to get that rolled up and play it now. So you can see them. They're waving to the crowds. You can see all the pictures being taken around. And there's Kate, looking beautiful. Not as beautiful as my wife, but, she's a pretty gracious woman.
Great.
And so they look like a good family, and some people you read on Facebook and they absolutely love the royal family of Great Britain, and they think it's just like the coolest thing in the world. And then you have others who are the haters, who are like, we came to America for a reason. But what's your opinion, Sam? What do you think?
I think, Tony, that you have to start by looking at the British citizenry and how do they view the royal family, because it's their royal family, just like President Obama is our president. And last year at the Queen's Jubilee celebration, her approval ratings, similar to our political leaders have approval ratings, her approval rating stood at 90%.
Wow.
Prince William, who he and the Duchess just had the baby, I believe his approval ratings are high 60s, about 70% maybe. So, so the British people really love the royal family.
Uh-huh.
Now, I would caution you that in the viewers, when they hear those approval ratings, I guess it's a little easier when you are a figurehead and not actually the elected official, because you don't make polarizing decisions that necessarily, anger half the people right away.
Right,
So,
right.
uh,
So, Leona, what about you? What are your thoughts on the royal family?
I think it's interesting how some people just love everything about them, and then other people love commenting on how none of us should care about them and people should get over it. My opinion is that I think it's great that people are excited about something positive. I mean, regardless of what you think of them, I think they're a couple who love each other and love their baby, and I think that is a beautiful thing. So I think it's great that people are just celebrating the baby's life.
Yeah, it is. It
In my
is
opinion.
in the world of all this kind of negative media, Sam. Isn't it kind of relieving to see something innocent being celebrated for once?
yes, Leona makes an excellent point that these are two people that are clearly in love.
Mhm.
They had a baby, and that is wonderful. And not only are they genuine and legitimate leaders, a couple more things about Prince William while we're on the topic. He's in the British Armed Services. He's royalty. He doesn't have to do that, but he joined the military anyway, where he's still active. And the royal family in general, in this era of that, there's a lot of austerity taking place in Europe. Here also, like with our sequestration, but in Europe it's been a lot worse. And the royal family has given a lot back to the United Kingdom voluntarily. So I think that's part of why they have such a faithful following in England and elsewhere around the globe, because they're so charitable. They've given back to their country, and it's just nice to see genuine leadership anywhere in the world.
And do you know, I think Princess Di, she probably had a lot to do with popularizing the crown and the royal family. And I think that Kate Middleton, although I don't know much about Kate Middleton, I kind of get that feeling that, I mean, she wasn't part of any royalty before, was she?
No, she's a commoner.
Okay,
She's what they would call a commoner.
So she's a commoner. So there, number one, you have this kind of fairy tale story that a lot of girls have growing up about. I mean, it just fits the whole script, doesn't it? Growing up a commoner and then meeting your prince and then becoming the
Literally.
most sought after, one of the most popular women of the world, and everybody thinks you're so beautiful. And so I think that this kind of fits that narrative pretty well, don't you think, Leona?
I do. I think she's also beautiful in a very sort of natural way, which I think is good. I mean, she looks like a very normal person. She doesn't at least appear to spend all of this time looking a certain way, and she just is who she is. And I think people are attracted to that, which is good.
Mm-hmm. And it's probably a good thing for the royal family, too, because, Sam, as you corrected me, I first called Prince William, I called him Prince Harry. And in fact, Prince Harry is not like Prince William, and Prince Harry has gotten into some trouble over the last couple of years. I think he's made some headlines, and so I'm sure that they just love the fact that they have this good, heartwarming story to kind of cover up some of Prince Harry's escapades in Las Vegas and other places.
That's true. One thing about Prince Harry, that, just to be fair, he has spent a lot of time in Afghanistan because, like his older brother, he's in the British military. So maybe there's some maturity difference between the two, but I think all in all, the fact that both serve in the military, I think that really says a lot to the British people and to all of us, that these young men that could just lead a life of privilege choose to serve their country, to be charitable. And I agree with, before we, if we change topics, I just want to say I think Leona makes excellent points about Kate Middleton that she's classically beautiful in a way that I think all girls can look up to. And she's intelligent, she's well-spoken, she carries herself so well. It's almost like, not to get too mushy, but it's almost like she was born to be queen. And the fact that she comes from a commoner's background, like you said, it just makes it a really wonderful story.
Yeah. And we were talking too, I want to keep to the same topic more or less, but we brought up the Joe Mauer and his wife having twins and how there were references, because of the timing. And, of course, people in Minnesota love Joe Mauer. They look up to him. He's a great athlete. And he's also somebody who, off the field, carries himself very well. He doesn't get into any sort of trouble or his name's not tarnished in any way. People have the utmost respect for him. Now, whether that outside of Minnesota that's true, I'm not quite sure about that, just because I don't think he's as popular as, the royal family is what I'm trying to say. But do we have something equivalent in our country to royalty? Is it our media figures, or is it the singers, or is it politicians, or who do we have in America that's similar, or is it totally unique? Do we not have anything like that?
Am I going to go first or Leona?
You can go first.
Okay. So what I would say, Tony, is that we may not have royalty, but I do think that and I'm not sure I like this, but I do think that we have political aristocracy. And I'll give an example that I think everybody could understand. So prior to President Obama, we had 20 straight years of a president being named Bush or Clinton. And now following President Obama, we're probably going to have another President Clinton. I don't know if the viewers of the show like that or dislike that or sit somewhere in between. I'm not thrilled about it, but I do think Hillary Clinton will be our next president. And the Bush family had served 3 terms as president recently. And remember, Jeb Bush is still out there, who's very popular in the Republican Party and could easily resurface as a 2016 candidate. So the fact that we have, and if you go back several decades, Tony, the Kennedys were certainly very popular, and so many, and really even up until Teddy Kennedy's death a few years ago, very popular and powerful, one family. So I don't know about royalty, but I would say there is political aristocracy in this country.
Mm-hmm. Leona, what do you think?
I agree. I think that's a very well-made point, and something that I actually think is not very good for our society or country as a whole. And then I think otherwise, I think we really do, as a culture, I think we idolize a lot of celebrities, whether they're actors and actresses or musicians. I think a lot of singers and musicians are definitely looked up to, perhaps more than they should be, just because of the things that we're taught from them, and especially the things that kids are taught from them. Mm-hmm. But I think that's the reality of what our culture really aspires to be.
So Sam, are you saying by the 20 years of either having a Bush or a Clinton, we had President George Bush, 41, who served as vice president for President Reagan? Did he serve both Reagan's terms as vice president?
That's right, Tony.
Okay, so there's from 1980 to 1988, that's 8 years, and then he was elected president the following one, so he was there for 12, and then 2 terms of Clinton, which led us to the 2008 election. And by my
2000.
judgment,
2000, Tony. Clinton was 92 to 2000, then the second Bush is 2000 to 2000.
Right. Yeah, I kind of bypassed that. I try to forget about those 8 years of American history. Sorry, you're right. And the interesting part is after President Bush 43 was done with his 8 years, and this is only my opinion, and I don't have any facts to back it up except for the way American politics works. I'm pretty sure that Hillary Clinton was supposed to be elected president in 2008 and not Barack Obama. I think Barack Obama came in and he took the political scene by storm, and I think he stole the presidency away from Hillary Clinton. Do you agree with that?
So, well, revisionist history is always fun, so this will be a good time. I remember that it was a nasty campaign between the Clintons and President Obama, and there's all sorts of places we could go with that. Let's start with the fact that the Republicans had no chance. I don't care what your political...
You're talking about 2008?
The Republicans had no chance. I think when they gave John McCain the nomination, to be honest, Tony, I think they were giving him the Lifetime Achievement Award. Hey, you've been around the party for a long time. You have no chance. We don't think you're a good candidate and that you could win in a hotly contested year. So we're going to let you... I think it was actually smart by the Republicans, and I don't think they do very many smart things right now as a national party. But in 2008, that was the right decision. Let's run the guy that has no chance. So he wasn't going to win. So it comes down to Hillary Clinton and President Obama. And no, I thought President Obama, as soon as he gave the speech at the 2004 Democratic National Convention, I thought he burst onto the scene then. Now, at the time, I was living in the greater Chicagoland area, so maybe that's why. Maybe my opinion was tainted because he won his election. When he won that election to become the senator in Illinois, I think he won with something like 86 or 87% of the vote in Illinois.
Wow.
He was hugely popular in Chicago. The Chicago political machine went to work on his behalf, and it worked. So I hesitate to say that he stole it from Hillary Clinton in 2008. It was hotly contested. It got very heated. It got nasty at times. You may recall the Clintons trying to say that President Obama tried to say that that he played the race card at one point. You may recall Samantha Power, who President Obama just a couple weeks ago nominated to fill Susan Rice's role as a UN ambassador. She was working on the Obama campaign in 2008, and she's the one that famously called Hillary Clinton a monster and then had to step down. And I thought it was interesting that as soon as Hillary was out of the administration, President Obama rewarded her and was loyal to her and put her in a nice position. But if you go back and you look at the primary race, Tony, I think that they both polled well. They both got a lot of votes. I hesitate to say he stole it. I think America fell in love with him as much as Hillary.
Yeah, and he contrasted probably better against the old George Bush policies that really made people get out there and organize and activate. Because at that time, I believe that so many people believed in President Obama and that he was going to be this radical departure from the failed foreign policies of President Bush and from some of the other big spending programs that were happening domestically at the time, like Medicare, Part D, and everything like that. And I think that was probably added a lot of the fuel to his fire.
And remember, hope and change. So that was, again, just brilliant campaigning from the Obama machine that we've seen twice now. Hillary Clinton can't really campaign on hope and change, right? Her husband was already president for 8 years, so they don't want to say more of the same, but that's essentially what they're saying is we did it well in the 90s, elect us again. The country was so desperate for change. Like I said, there's no way the Republicans were winning. So for President Obama, hope and change was an easy slogan. I don't think we got much of it, but, well, I take that back. We are getting some change. But so when I look back on it, again, it's revisionist history, but when I look back on it, and you said the country was ready for change, he campaigned on it, I think he beat her fair and square. I don't think he stole it.
Well, going back, so talking about 2016 now, and your assertion that Hillary Clinton's a shoo-in for the presidency, there's been a number of scandals that have come about over the last couple of years. Benghazi being one of those. Some other lesser scandals like the Anthony Weiner scandal, who the Clintons are very much tied to Anthony Weiner and his wife Uma. And now you have President Obama addressing these scandals in a recent speech. And we're going to listen to some of that speech, and then we're going to talk about it hereafter. So I'm going to try to see if I can get this thing lined up here. And oops, more like that one. And where is this? Here it is. And so this is President Obama in his recent speech, and he's talking about, he made headlines because he was talking about the scandals that have been hitting his presidency. And many are saying that this is actually the Democratic National Party going on the offense about these scandals, which Hillary Clinton could potentially be tied to. And he's repeated this slogan of phony scandals. And it's made quite a bit of a stir. So we're going to play that right now.
Then over the last 6 months, this gridlock's gotten worse. I didn't think that was possible. The good news is a growing number of Republican senators are looking to join their Democratic counterparts and try to get things done in the Senate. So that's good news. For example, they worked together on an immigration bill that economists say will boost our economy by more than $1 trillion, strengthen border security, make the system work. But you've got a faction of Republicans in the House who won't even give that bill a vote. And that same group gutted a farm bill that America's farmers depend on, but also America's most vulnerable children depend on. And if you ask some of these folks mostly in the House, about their economic agenda, how it is that they'll strengthen the middle class, they'll shift the topic to out-of-control government spending, despite the fact that we've cut the deficit by nearly half as a share of the economy since I took office. Or they'll talk about government assistance for the poor, despite the fact that they've already cut early education for vulnerable kids. They've already cut insurance for people who've lost their jobs through no fault of their own. Or they'll bring up Obamacare. This is tried and true. Despite the fact that our businesses have created nearly twice as many jobs in this recovery as businesses had at the same point in the last recovery when there was no Obamacare. So, I appreciate that. That's what that's about. That's what this is about. That's what we've been fighting for. But with this endless parade of distractions and political posturing and phony scandals, Washington's taken its eye off the ball. And I'm here to say this needs to stop. This needs to stop. This moment does not require short-term thinking. It does not require having the same old stale debates. Our focus has to be on the basic economic issues that matter most to you, the people we represent. That's what we have to spend our time on and our energy on and our focus on. And as Washington prepares to enter another budget debate, the stakes for our middle class and everybody who's fighting to get into the middle class could not be higher. The countries that are passive in the face of a global economy, those countries will lose the competition for good jobs. They will lose the competition for high living standards. That's why America has to make the investments necessary to promote long-term growth and shared prosperity, rebuilding our manufacturing base, educating our workforce, upgrading our transportation systems, upgrading our information networks. That's what we need to be talking about. That's what Washington needs to be focused on.
So that's a recent speech that President Obama gave. I think it was last week, last Sunday or something. And I'm going to try to get Sam up here again if I can. There he is. And it's the same old theme. Like, I get it. You talk about the economy. You talk about jobs. You talk about getting people's hopes up. But the fact of the matter is, I think that the economy is stagnant at very best, and it seems that at least the criticism is that the Democrats are just trying to refocus the debate back to jobs, and going away from the scandals and other things that are plaguing them right now. And I don't know, Sam. Do you think it's honest?
No, I think it's politics as usual. There are a couple of really important takeaways from that speech, and unfortunately, it's not really the content. It's not like President Obama laid out new policy or bold changes and plans. He speaks about the phony scandals that are taking up so much time in Washington and that are distractions. And I think if you're a casual observer of the news, you may have heard that a few times this week. You may have heard Jay Carney, the White House spokesperson, talking. I think he mentioned it a couple different times that we've got these phony scandals, and the president himself mentioned it. So it's almost like their policy people got together and said, "Hey, we've got these lingering issues, none of which look good for the administration, like the IRS scandal, for example, which is very much a scandal, or Benghazi, which, if not a scandal, it's an incident that we still need answers for." So it's like they're getting together and they're saying, let's call it a phony scandal, and hopefully, casual people will hear that and sort of dismiss it. They'll get sick of hearing about these scandals that aren't real. But here's what I would say, Tony, is it's not like the president has been responding to the scandals. Let's use the IRS one, for example. The president himself, when this news broke, when the Inspector General for the IRS broke the news about the conservative groups being unfairly targeted, the president said that's outrageous. Nobody should be targeted based on their political beliefs by the financial law enforcement arm of the government. And he said he was outraged. We never heard him talk about it again. So it's not like it's been taking up his time and that he's been leading us and trying to figure out what happened. We don't hear him talk about Benghazi anymore. He and Secretary Clinton both have run away from any discussion there. So you can say that these are distracting, but they're not distracting you, because you clearly, the president and the administration, because you clearly spend no time addressing them. And that's what, to me, is bothersome. And I also wish that the media would say, Mr. President, what are the phony scandals? I would like him to be a little more forthcoming and tell us what's legitimate, what should we be talking about, and what's phony.
Mm-hmm. And it's pretty interesting, too, because there's other scandals that are going on throughout the American political system, whether it's nationally, locally, or city races and whatnot. And one thing that I do find, and I'm becoming more and more frustrated by, is there seems to be a substantial block of voters that don't really care about scandals. They don't really care about cover-ups. They don't necessarily really even care too much about moral issues either. And as long as the political establishment can keep on this narrative that we're for the middle class, we're for women's rights, We're for helping the poor. We're for early childhood education, even though the federal government really has no business in that whatsoever. But they can keep repeating these themes that resonate amongst people, or maybe they repeat it enough where people actually believe it, but they just have to say, we're for the middle class. And it's like nothing else matters. And the example that I'm going to use to prove that is the gentleman who's running for the mayor of New York City, Anthony Weiner. I have read people who support him still, despite all of the drama that's come out, not only since he's made his first public confession about inappropriate tweets and messages that he's sending online while married, but even after that confession, he continued this terrible behavior, and it's astonishing because I've read accounts from his supporters that are like, listen, he is a stalwart supporter of the middle class issues, of unions, of whatever it might be, and it's almost like people put their blinders on the second you say middle class, or you say you're helping the poor, or you're standing up for women. And we're just going to watch a little bit of Weiner's most recent confession here, and then we'll put you back on, Sam. So let's see if I can pull this up here. Where did I find him now? Is this it?
Hopefully we're not going to see too much of him.
No, we're not gonna see too much here. I got to. Is this it right here? No, that's. Maybe I didn't put it up here. Well, never mind. I think everybody, anyways, read about it in the news. But here it is. I found it. Good. Ready?
Good afternoon. My name is Anthony Weiner, Democratic candidate for mayor of the city of New York. I have said that other texts and photos were likely to come out, and today they have.
All right.
As I've said in the past, these things that I did were wrong and hurtful to my wife and caused us to go through many challenges in our marriage that extended past my resignation from Congress. While some of the things that have been posted today are true and some are not, there is no question that what I did was wrong. This behavior is behind me. I've apologized to my wife, Huma, and I'm grateful that she has worked through these issues with me and that I've had her forgiveness. I want to again say how very sorry I am to anyone who has received the receiving end of these messages and the disruption that this has caused. And my wife and I, as I've said, are moving forward together. To some degree, with 49 days left until primary day, perhaps I'm surprised that more things didn't come out sooner. I'm responsible for this behavior that led us to be in this place. But in many ways, things are not that much different than they were yesterday. This behavior that I did was problematic, to say the least, destructive, to say the most, caused many stresses and strains in my marriage. But I'm pleased and blessed that she has given me a second chance. For the past several months, I've been asking New Yorkers to also give me another chance, to show them that I had a vision for the middle class and those struggling to make it, and that I wanted to move forward.
There it is. He said it. He's given this apology here, and he transitions right from his apology to the middle class, sticking up for the poor, standing up for women's rights. The same old script that you hear over and over and over again. And quite honestly, I question why people just continue to buy this. But Leona, do you have any idea why people would continually and be so forgiving of our elected officials this way?
I just want to say, I think it's a little crazy that he can't give a 60-second apology without reading.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a
you'd
very
think
well
that's a pretty big. It should be something that's very close to his heart and something that he's sincere about. You'd think that he could at least say something apologizing to New Yorkers and to his own wife without reading from a script. But who am I to judge?
He's not only reading for a script, but on the front, he's got his campaign sign in front of all of the press microphones, and that's like the most prominent thing that you see is Weiner for mayor. And to give New Yorkers credit, I think since he has now confessed that for a second time that he sent out these lewd texts and emails and whatever else he was doing. I think he finally did slip into the second place position, but he still has a substantial chunk of people supporting him in New York City. I would imagine millions of people. Is that right, Sam?
That's right, Tony. He dropped about 9 percentage points in the poll, and he's trailing a woman. I believe her name is Christine Quinn, a city council person. But he remains popular with large portions of the population. I think Leona made some excellent points about how scripted and not genuine the apology was at all. And the only thing I would disagree with that Leona said it at the very end, she said, "Who am I to judge?" I think we all are to judge. And I think, to your point, Tony, that Americans need to start being so much more critical of our leaders. We live in what's supposed to be a representative democracy. He represents, maybe not you guys because you live in Minnesota, but
well, he was a member of Congress, though, so in a way, he was representing us.
So if you're, especially if you're, he was a congressional Democrat. So if you're a Democrat in his district, my sister down in New York City was, or just a Democrat in general, or an American, he does represent us, and we elect these people, and in some cases elect them again, and there are so many different, his conduct is so unbecoming. But even if you want to say to yourself, if you're so partisan, and this isn't just a Democrat issue, because South Carolinians stupidly elected Mark Sanford, the Appalachian Trail guy, who was the governor that had to disgracefully resign. My favorite part about that particular scandal was that Jenny Sanford, his wife, left him. I thought that was a true feminist. Unlike Hillary, unlike Huma, standing there for the sake of your own political career, Jenny Sanford, I thought, was the best scorned woman. She left Mark Sanford. But South Carolinians, Republicans, stupidly sent him back to Congress. So I think we all need to ask ourselves, Tony, you and I talk all the time about how much we want to put into your show. We're both busy. We have jobs and careers that keep us busy all week, families, whatever. If you're an elected official, shouldn't you be taking your job seriously enough that you don't have time to be taking naked, lewd, crude pictures of yourself and finding 20, women half your age on Facebook to send them to? You're supposed to be married. So when people say, oh, well, if he's doing his job well, he's obviously not doing his job that well, because the time that you could devote to your sexual escapades, our country has problems. If you're in Congress, knock it off and spend your time doing something more constructive. The decision making, the potential for blackmail, the potential that you put yourself in to be blackmailed by any number of people. This is not what we can have in this complacency where Americans just say, oh, that's a politician, and then put them back in office. It's detestable.
Yeah, and not to mention, you have Weiner and many, many other hypocritical politicians, as Sam pointed out, both Republicans and Democrats. Weiner's telling us how, he's there for the middle class and how he's fought for the poor and how he stands up against injustice and how he protects women's rights. And, well, my question is, if he is so loyal and if he is so committed to these causes, why can't he stay loyal and committed to his wife? And I want to ask Leona that question. As a woman, does that raise any eyebrows for you, or do you question that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's something that people should be considering. I think everyone has some idea of the fact that being in politics is really hard, and being in politics and maintaining good motives is really hard. Even from, your run for Congress, there were plenty of things that we could have done or given into, and you weren't even elected, and that was just running. So just seeing the glimpse of how difficult it is to be a principled politician makes me think that really no one is up to the task unless they are personally very principled. So to me, it's just obvious if you can't maintain the most basic, like you're married, you stay faithful to your spouse. If you can't even maintain that, how could you possibly handle all of the
Temptations,
Yeah, all of the
money
temptations and-
temptations,
exactly.
the lobbyists, the people who are asking you for favors,
Yeah.
or they're doing whatever. And the other part, and I think that Weiner, and I should make this clear, is that I believe he has every right in the world to run for mayor, even if he is a slime ball or if he's got issues or whatever it might be. He's got every right to do it. What I find astonishing is that he continues to run for the mayor of New York City, and it's almost like he's not even fazed by any of this. And granted, we don't know what goes on behind closed doors. We don't know what he truly is feeling, but at least in my viewpoint, is if you're up against this, you've already confessed to something a year prior, and then you decide to run for mayor of New York City, and then these new allegations came out after you already made your old confession, and it was doing the same thing. Like, where does he get, and Sam, where does he get the gall to continue his run? Does he really feel that his leadership is that much of a necessity to the success of New Yorkers and the city in general?
Well, there's precedent, Tony. Remember President Clinton, who, more revisionist history. I'm not sure President Clinton and this dynastic legacy that he has now, fair or unfair, I'm not sure he would have ever made it if he came into politics now, because you go back and you look at his history with the Paula Jones lawsuit and Jennifer Flowers and all these things. If there was internet and sexting and all these things, he may have never made it this far. But he did. And the Wieners are very close with the Clintons. So I'm going to start calling them Clintons Jr., actually, where Wiener's wife, and this is going to all unravel in the news, Tony, but so he resigns from Congress, and then they do a really big feature article in the New York Times, and also I believe People magazine, and little do we know, presenting themselves as this, healing family. Meanwhile, Wiener's still doing all these things. The timelines are going to get really suspicious as to what she knew he was up to and didn't. And it's going to be just like the Clintons. They're not a marriage of love like we started off the show talking about Prince William and Kate Middleton. They're just a political marriage, and as long as they can get into a powerful position and stay there, that's their motive. They're not working for the middle class. They're working for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Same as the Clintons. And Americans of all political inclinations need to take a look at these people and say, are they really like me? Are they really in touch with the middle class? And I think if you really think about it and you dig deep and you read about them, you'll say no, they're nothing.
Yeah, and just to switch gears a little bit, we're talking about how Democrats are always talking about supporting the middle class, the poor, the women, go on and on and on. Well, Republicans are just as guilty, not necessarily of that script, but they're just as guilty of the script of everything's about national security. Everything is about fighting terrorism and keeping you safe and putting money into the industrial complex and this, that, and other thing. And that became pretty clear last week. Congressman Justin Amash, he's a Republican congressman from Michigan. He's not well liked amongst the Republican establishment whatsoever, because he's kind of always going against the grain and against what the leadership said. But he proposed an amendment that actually got to the floor for a vote. And it was a very, very close vote. And it was the NSA amendment. And he essentially made an amendment that would defund the calling program that the NSA has, where they're storing the metadata and tracing who's calling who, where, when, and how. And I think they lost the vote 205 to 212. But I just want to point out that our Minnesota delegation here, because I looked at to see how people voted, and the Republican delegation that we send to Congress, plus one Democrat, Colin Peterson, who's in the 7th District of Minnesota, they all voted against the amendment that would defund the NSA spying program on American citizens, whereas our Democratic elected officials or delegation that we send to Minnesota, Congresswoman Betty McCollum, Keith Ellison, and I'm forgetting who the other one was, but they actually voted in favor of the amendment ending the funding to the NSA, which I believe is the right vote. But it just goes back to this idea that you have one side that's telling you, oh, we're for the middle class, we're for the poor, we're for the women. Then we have the other side that's saying, you know, we're strong against terrorism, we fight for a strong national defense, and we'll do that at all costs. And meanwhile, my big fear is that the true reality or the true consequence of this all are that people who are in the middle class, people who are just trying to make it and to save some money and maybe buy a house someday or pay for their kids' education, we're all getting screwed in the meantime. Is that a fair assessment, Sam?
Yeah. Before we run out of time, Tony, did you want middle class? Very important. Household median incomes. This isn't exactly in line with the NSA stuff, but just to show that both parties are failing the middle class. The median household income in June of 2009, when we got out of recession and technically we're into economic recovery, median household income in this country was a little over $54,000 a year. Median household income now, $51,000 and change. It would be terrible for the middle class if the number had stayed the same and we weren't keeping up with inflation. It's gone down. The president had 2 years when he came into office with a democratically controlled House and Senate. So they could put policies like Affordable Care Act and things that they want. They could ram anything through that they wanted. Republicans had many years before that. So I don't know where to side politically, but the middle class is, if not suffering, it's shrinking. It's losing wealth. So for either side to say they're doing what's right for the middle class, that's a really tough sell right now.
Yeah, and you know that brings up the point too, is the median income's going down from 54,000 to 51,000. We also have the problem with employment in this country. Some of the studies that are showing up that part-time employment in America is increasing because of the Affordable Care Act, because of Obamacare. Obamacare is actually giving employers incentive to not hire full-time employees and to change as many people to part-time employees as possible, because then they don't have to abide by the different mandates and whatnot that's within the bill. So, and then not to mention, when you have incomes of middle class going down, well, the cost of all the basics, whether it's healthcare, whether it's the cost of education, whether it's the cost of property taxes or your groceries at the supermarket, those are all going up. And as you pointed out, the income of the middle class is going down, and so somebody's failing here. Whether it's both parties is probably what I would go by, but we're all being failed here, and we're out of time here too. I'd like to thank everyone for joining. Leona, thank you for coming on the show for the first time. Thank you for watching the show. May God bless you. May God bless America. And vaya con Dios.